really like this.
I'm super excited to tell you this case.
I am stoked.
It's very different from yours.
Okay.
I like that we go in different directions. So for my vanished case, my sources were Mamma Mia, which is an Australian blog, an article or something on the blog by Billy Fitzsimmons. I think it was a blog. I think that's what it, yeah.
Okay.
The Sun, an article by Sophie Jane Evans, the New Yorker, but it looks like I wrote the New Yonker.
Oh, yeah, the New Yanker.
Yonker.
Oh.
An Ordegar. Oh my God.
Can we get an exorcism in here right now? Call the priest.
Did that sound weird?
Did that sound weird? You sounded like the devil.
I guess I'm 3 6s.
Holy smokes.
I'm dying. An article by Rachel Aviv. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
ABC Nightline. The Untold Story, which I only saw clips, but it is a documentary about this case that I now need to find. And I went deep on Reddit.
Oh. Yeah, Reddit loves the Vanishings.
Yes, they do. Well, because it's all theories.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of couch detectives
Couch.
that I'm thankful for. So I'm going to tell you the story of Hannah Upp, UPP. Okay, buckle up. The girl who went missing 3 different times.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with her background. And this is a long case, but I promise it's fascinating. AF.
All right. I'm leaning back with the beer. Everyone, if you haven't grabbed your drink, press pause, grab a drink, come back. Please press play.
Yeah, please. So I'll start with her background. Hannah Upp grew up in Oregon, where Sarah grew up.
That's awesome.
Her parents were both pastors at Japanese American churches.
I don't know where that is.
You just stared at me. Or I stared at you.
I thought that you were staring at me like, and that is, because I'm from Oregon. I'm like, don't know where those
No, I'm sure they're
there's
all
lots
over
of them.
Tell us exactly where these are.
Where are the churches, Sarah?
Her mom, Barbara, spoke.
Wait, did you stare at me because you need an exorcism and you are afraid of the churches?
Yes. Her mom, Barbara, spoke fluent Japanese and also spent some time in Japan as a teacher. So I think that's part of what made them become pastors at Japanese American churches. I don't know. When Hannah was 15, her parents got divorced and her dad moved overseas to spread the gospel, eventually settling in the Philippines, which is my birthplace. What?
Yeah. This is about both of our birthplaces.
Yeah. Hannah's father was a strict follower of his religion. He believed homosexuality to be unnatural and a great sin. And I say that because it'll matter. Her mom, a few years after the divorce, in 2007, took a leave from her position as pastor and she moved to a small Quaker town outside of Philadelphia. I'm full of them today.
Well, we had a brewed IPA, which, if you don't know, is more bubbly than normal.
Oh, now I know. Her and Hannah stopped speaking to each other for a while. Hannah was 22 at the time. Hannah enrolled at Bryn Mawr College. She joined an evangelical campus ministry. So she also was what?
The back of your page is a pretty basic math problem.
Okay, you can tell people what's on the back of my page.
She's holding up her notes so she can obviously look to them and refer to them. And it's a completely blank page and it says 2007 minus 1985. And she's like shown her math. The answer is 22. So.
I was trying to figure out how old she was.
Fine. Please start your sentence over. I'm very sorry that I interrupted that.
No, I was wondering why. I was like, it's funny that she went to college.
I couldn't stop laughing at your math problem.
Thank you. Hannah enrolled at Bryn Mawr College, and there she joined an evangelical campus ministry. She was also very strong in her faith. Everyone who met Hannah described her as bright, sweet, thoughtful. Once at Bryn Mawr, one of Hannah's friends, who was raised Hindu, asked Hannah, like straight blank, like, do you think I'm going to hell?
Oh.
And the friend said that Hannah looked at her and then just kind of lost it and started sobbing and couldn't answer the question. The friend said that Hannah wasn't the type of person who would just defend her beliefs or try to convert someone. Instead, she sees her friend in front of her and really takes this question to heart. And she lets this question her beliefs and how she feels about people, which I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Her friend is like, so according to like your, and I'm not, I don't want to get into it. I'm not judging anyone's religion, but it just shows what kind of person Hannah was. Like, she let everything affected her deeply. And she looked at her friend and was like, oh my God, I can't, like, no, I can't say that.
Yeah.
This friend described Hannah, said that she was, quote, was loving and open-hearted, but she had zero idea of who she actually was, which kind of makes sense. Like, she's very strong in her faith, raised by 2 pastors, but she doesn't defend it staunchly. Like, she does question it. You know, she seems very conflicted. One day during Hannah's sophomore year at Bryn Mawr, Hannah called her mom crying. They hadn't talked in a while, but Hannah calls her mom crying, saying that she went to a talk held by a female minister who told a story about how she was kicked out of her congregation after telling them that she was dating a woman. And Hannah became deeply upset and conflicted because she couldn't believe that her faith, which she really believed in and cared about, could have an element that seemed so cruel.
Yeah.
So she like is super strong in her faith, but she's also like, wait, they kicked out this woman for dating a woman. Like, that's cruel and terrible. So she was very conflicted inside.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have had similar experiences. If you grew up like in a church in any way, like that always did it for me. It's hard to get over that.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 million burpees.
Hannah was also hiding a secret. She wanted to date women. And by her junior year, she finally had more confidence and she started to date women. She dated women and men. But she hid this from her father. She felt like she had to.
Yeah.
So every time she would go visit her father, who still lived in the Philippines, she literally had to swallow part of who she was. Like, and she went to visit her dad a lot. So not only is she conflicted about her faith and her beliefs outside of her faith, but she has to juggle different lives, essentially, depending on who she's with. Eventually, after graduation, Hannah moved to New York City, where she worked as a teacher and volunteered for a couple different AIDS organizations. Then in September 2008, Hannah did not show up for the first day of classes at Thurgood Marshall Academy, which is a public school in Harlem. Her roommates said that her wallet, passport, Metro card, and cell phone were all in her purse at their apartment. So her roommate, like when they called or whatever looking for her, Hannah was reported missing, and the headlines read, Teacher 23 disappeared into thin air. Literally, Hannah was just gone. There was no sign of her. Like, just ran, like on the first day of classes, she didn't show up. No one had heard from her. So she was immediately reported missing.
Yeah, she didn't have her phone or purse or anything.
Yeah, nothing. And it immediately gained media attention, obviously.
Yeah.
Then a few days later, it's about to get super weird. Hannah was spotted at an Apple store in the city, and obviously New York City's huge, but she was spotted at an Apple store by an old classmate, this man who actually went up to her and was like, you're Hannah. Like, I know, like, Hannah, you're missing, but here you, like, he was kind of freaked out and he was like, but here you are. She was wearing running shorts and a sports bra, and she looked at the man confused and was like, I'm not Hannah, and like waved him, like you can see like on camera, she's like waving him away and like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not like, I'm not who you think I am.
Was it actually Hannah?
So, yes, it was. While at the Apple store, however, she used one of the laptops to log into her Gmail account before leaving the store. Like,
so she
Hannah's
knew she
Gmail
was
account.
Hannah.
I'll get into that.
Okay.
You know, the police are obviously called, or the man calls. The police show the Apple surveillance footage to Barbara, Hannah's mom, and she knows immediately that it's Hannah. And you can tell in the video, her mom says that she's waving the guy off and like dismissing him. So she's seen, but she still doesn't come home. Hannah's friends and family search everywhere, all the parks, running paths, the wood, because she was in running clothes. They were like, but everyone's super confused. But what I was impressed by is the police were still looking for her, even though they weren't just like, oh, she was seen, she's a grown up, she took off. Like, everyone kind of knows something's wrong, even though she was seen.
How clever, though, of her, or just by need, I don't know, that she would go check her email by going to the Apple store. She doesn't have her phone.
Yeah, she doesn't have anything. Yeah, so she goes and finds a laptop and logs in. This case is weird.
Caitlin just kind of debriefed me right before we started, and like I thought that I knew what the case is, but I actually am thinking of something else. This isn't it.
2 days after she was seen at the Apple store, Hannah was spotted at a Starbucks, and someone recognized her, and police were called. And by the time police got there, she was gone. So this is what I mean by like police were still involved, which I think is really amazing, because I feel like in a lot of cases they're like, she's a grown up, like,
yeah, she can do whatever she wants.
She's fine. Then on September 16th, 20 days after Hannah was reported missing, the captain of a Staten Island ferry spotted a woman's body in the water floating face down. They rushed to pull her from the water, but believed she was already dead. It's like, I would think the same thing.
Yeah.
But when they pulled her out, she gasped for air and started crying. It was Hannah, which obviously they didn't know, but they took this woman to Richmond University Medical Center on Staten Island because it was the closest. This woman had no recollection of where she had been the last 3 weeks. She didn't even know who she was. Like, she couldn't answer any questions. But after a handful of questions, the medical staff were able to find out that her name was Hannah and get her mom's phone number. So it was like she knew these things but didn't know she knew them kind of thing.
Sure. It was almost like those memories that are muscle memory. Like, I remember my best friend's landline phone number growing up, and I think I'll never forget it.
Yeah. But it's not something, if I was like, what's the number? You'd be like, I don't know. But if I give you a phone, you could dial it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Barbara came to the hospital right away. She finds a weirdly like super sunburned, but also very pale Hannah. Like half of her body was sunburned, half was really pale. Her mom said she looked as if she had been pulled behind a boat for 3 weeks, to where like patches of her skin were sunburned, patches were
and she
pale.
Was just, like, her skin is all, well, she'd been in the water, or like,
yeah, and I'll get into more of how long they think she was in the water.
Well, and like she must have been living outside, like,
for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The first thing Hannah said to her mom was, "Why am I wet?" But like at this point, she remembers her name and everything before the first 3 weeks, but can't remember anything about the last 3 weeks. She was treated for dehydration, hypothermia, severe sunburn, and she recovered fine, but Hannah still had no idea what she had spent the last 3 weeks doing.
Oh, that's so scary.
She said, "I went for a jog and then woke up in an ambulance." Like, so even though 20 days had passed, Hannah thought only 10 minutes had gone by. Like, she remembered nothing.
Wow.
They even put her, like, hypnotized her, and she couldn't remember anything. That night, while asleep in the chair next to Hannah's bed, Barbara, her mom, said that Hannah jolted awake in the middle of the night and said, "I was in a lighthouse," then laid back down and went back to sleep.
Oh, that's disturbing to me. I don't know why. Just that jolt.
Yeah.
That would spook me in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And then Hannah had no memory of that the next day.
Oh.
Didn't remember saying that. Hannah was soon transferred to the psychiatric unit of Columbia University Medical Center.
Yeah.
Doctors performed numerous tests, brain scans, like a bunch of different stuff, looking for any neurological issues to see, but they found nothing physically wrong with her. So they said the lapse of memory or this event was likely psychological in nature.
Yeah.
She was diagnosed with dissociative fugue. And I only know how to say it because I watched videos. It's a rare condition where people lose their autobiographical memory and their personal identity, and they often like find or develop or create a new one. It's also known as the Jason Bourne syndrome.
How fascinating is it that we need an identity? Like, we truly do so much that if one escapes us for whatever strange reason, we're like, well, let's make a new one. We have to be someone.
Yeah, you have to. This can last days. And the Jason Bourne thing means nothing to me because I've never seen the movies, but if you have, it will mean something to you.
I haven't either.
This can last days, weeks, once reported as lasting 4 years, where someone went into a fugue, as they call it, then kind of snapped out of it 4 years later. And that I'll talk about again at the end. The fugue state is usually caused by trauma, whether old or recent, but there's almost always trauma behind it. Hannah, her parents, and her brother all said that they could not recall anything Hannah had been through that they would call traumatic. Me personally, that doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
I think not everyone knows. Plus, something small that you might not either want to admit or even recognize as trauma could be traumatic. There might be things that happen in your childhood you don't remember, or your parents might not say are traumatic, but you think like that.
Or something that happened to you that you never told anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be anything. Hannah's roommate said that at the hospital, Hannah was her normal, upbeat self. She was actually cracking jokes about what may have happened to her over the last few weeks. She was like, maybe I was in a hit and run. Maybe I got mugged. Maybe I got assaulted. Like, she was cracking, like, which I get. That's kind of like this podcast. That's how we deal with things.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably like a good way for her to be like, I'm here. I'm okay. Yeah. Like, whatever happened, whatever.
Yeah, she was herself. She was making jokes. A lot of people actually accused Hannah of faking it. So Hannah had to read all this stuff because obviously she didn't remember the last 3 weeks. It kind of reminded me of 50 First Dates. Yeah. When Adam Sandler has to show Drew Barrymore all the news clippings because she doesn't remember. Yeah. After the car accident.
And every single morning she has to watch a video before she goes outside.
Yeah. So Hannah didn't remember or even know she was missing. So she's reading news clippings and stuff about her being missing for 3 weeks, which would be terrifying.
Can you imagine reading that though? Like you feel like you fell asleep during a jog or